Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Hope y'all have had a great start to your week, a great Monday. There's a lot to discuss. If you watched the video last night, I mentioned the chance for a cold Thanksgiving week and the potential for a storm system with a negative NAO setting up. Normally, that favors cold weather and stormy weather, which higher chances of precipitation. So that's what we're going to talk about as models overnight into today have increased the possibility for storm risk. And when you match that with potential cold air around, you have a chance for winter weather. So I will mention before I really get deep into this video is the details, they're all just possibilities right now. So we don't know anything set in stone, but what we are getting more and more confidence in is that it's going to be a cold Thanksgiving week for portions of the week and maybe all of the week for everybody in the eastern U.S. And that includes the southeast, mid-Atlantic, northeast. Could be a storm system around. So that's what we're going to break down. We're going to talk about the latest information that we have with this. I'm a big fan of winter weather, so it's exciting talking about this, but this is also a big travel week, so it's important to discuss the potential here. So if you guys have not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. I upload content every single day, and I would love to get more viewers from different areas of the country. I mainly talk weather in the eastern U.S., so I would love to be able to communicate and talk with others and grow my channel. So hit the like button if you like the video. I'm also a storm chaser, so I get out there and chase it when I can. I'm not a full-time storm chaser, so it's not like I can chase every single event. But if the success keeps up, I'll be able to chase more and more systems. So thank y'all for the amazing support. Y'all got anything I can pray about, put it in the comments. It gives me an opportunity to pray for you guys. It gives other an opportunity to pray over your situations too. So with all that mouthful going, let's get going here. So what we're going to start off here with a lot, and it's going to be the reason why everybody clicked on this video, and that is looking at precipitation and everybody's wanting to see, okay, I just want to see if there's going to be blue over my location, if there's going to be green over my location. Well, let me mention this. We're still over 200 hours out for just about the entire week of Thanksgiving. So it's still in the long range, technically. So take anything you see with a grain of salt, but what we're going to do is start off by the European model. And we're going to get going here, and as we're going, this week it's going to warm up for a lot of areas of the eastern U.S., and then the front moves through. It's probably going to have a pretty chilly weekend this weekend, but as we get into Thanksgiving week, we get into the Monday of Thanksgiving, another cold front sets up. With the northern stream up here, you have the southern stream obviously to the south and the northern stream to the north. You have a piece of energy trying to work its way down here, and that is going to try to merge with some energy to the southern stream and see if you can get some kind of closed low pressure or closed vortice piece of energy here to basically promote some type of storm system along the eastern U.S. So if you're looking at the European, you're getting into Monday, and it's happening to a degree. It's not completely closed off, but look at this. You got snow showing up all the way, and this is just one operational run. I will say that a million times. It's 180 hours out. It's very far out, and it's going to change in a few hours on the next European model. But I just want to show you the signal here because there's a pretty stout signal for some kind of storm system with cold air around. So the latest operational European has cold air, and what is happening here is a low pressure is developing here, and it has it deepening very quickly, so strengthening very quickly. So basically it's wrapping warm air up in here, and then it's pulling the cold air down. So that's why it looks very odd. You're seeing these blues in Virginia and North Carolina, but you're seeing greens to the north. It's because it's such a strong system, but it almost is unrealistic at the same time. But it's crazy. It brings snow. It's bringing snow all the way into the triad of North Carolina. So, we talked about it last night. It really wasn't showing up much, but we talked about it. And this could turn around and go away. When you have a negative NAO, which is blocking over Greenland or blocking in the northern Atlantic, it could promote a stormy and cold pattern in the eastern U.S. And here it is. Here's a big storm system right in time for Thanksgiving week. And this is looking like it's going to predominantly be before Thanksgiving, but right at the end of the run, you have another system too firing up here. So the video, we're going to be discussing Thanksgiving week, but I want to mention the pattern even after Thanksgiving week as we get into the first part of December. Right now, in the long range, looks very interesting as far as cold and stormy weather, which sometimes, depending on where you live, can mean wintry weather, especially folks in the north. Look at the latest GFS. And I'll show you the 12Z GFS too, but I want to show you the 18Z because I don't want to just show you the models that show the most winter weather. You're getting into this weekend. It cools down. A cold front moves through, and then a big-time cold front moves through early next week for Thanksgiving week, so about a week out. what happens here is that really fires up a vigorous lake effect snow event when you have a lot of cold air still going over relatively warm water temps of the Great Lakes, like Lake Erie, Ontario, the whole 9 yards, Lake Michigan. But with this run, you really don't get this piece of energy that really starts to close off until it's well off the coast of the Northeast. So therefore, you're not getting a storm system. If you could bump this several hundred miles back to the west, and you get a little bit of cold air. Obviously, if you bump this more to the west, you probably bump the cold air more to the west. But you get a very close situation where you have a major storm system or winter storm for portions of the eastern U.S. But you see these 540 lines right here, and that is 540 is a 32-degree line, yes, but not at the surface. It's aloft. But it's still a good indicator that you have cold air in the atmosphere dipping extremely far south. So, yes, there's a storm system still showing up. It's just the latest GFS run. It's not really close. This could easily tick back west. Now, you look at the GFS run from 12Z, it's a different scenario, right? So it brings this piece of energy, tries to match it with this piece of energy while cold air is dipping down from Canada. And you have almost a transfer here between a low pressure, and it kind of matches and it deepens and turns into a big-time storm system off the Northeast. And what happens here is it doesn't completely close off even on this, but you have some heavy snow getting very close to the big cities in the eastern U.S., and then you have plenty of cold air moving down, pumps up a pretty decent northwest flow event. And, all these scenarios, we're going to find out a lot here in the next few days, but it's definitely looking interesting. I'm not the only one to talk about. There's professional meteorologists talking about it also, but it's going to be interesting what happens. It really is. I'm going to say the word interesting about 513 times, so sorry. But what we're watching here really is there's this Arctic trough, and this is it right here. Now watch what this little blob right here does. It's a piece of energy. You can just call it a piece of energy, a vortice, but we all know the term energy very well, so we'll use that. This piece of energy drops down. It's a trough, and as it begins to dig here, it gets kind of amplified, and it moves through, and the southern stream's sitting right here, and it tries to merge with it. And this is the European run, but check it out, trying to close off. It doesn't completely do it, but it gets very close, and that's why this trough brings down cold air from North America, from Canada, and you have almost a big-time storm system. And you do have a big-time storm system, but it's not as big as it could potentially be if this completely gets closed off. But that is why you're getting a wild scenario, across the Mid-Atlantic, even North Carolina and southern areas of Northeast, with this cold, snowy conditions showing up for early next week. You get a little bit closer look at the GFS, and this is the 18Z, and even though there isn't a storm showing up, and it basically is showing it really developing off the coast, you can still see this big-time piece of energy dipping down, and it just does not really close off or get very close to closing off until it's well off the coast of the Northeast, and therefore you don't really have any precipitation with this because it gets its act together after it moves off the lower 48. This is another good way to show you where this basically colder, lowered heights are, basically showing where this cold front would be. Take a look at this piece of energy right here as it moves down. It's a lot more clear way to show it. This little piece of energy right here is a trough that's going to cool us down for the weekend, but this one quickly trails behind it, and here it goes, digs deep, and this is, if you look right up here, a negative NAO sets up, and that's when you have blocking over Greenland. So that allows for cold air to dip down from an Arctic origin, meaning you have a cross-polar flow. This is exactly what a cross-polar flow looks like, and it's really digging right here, and this is a significant sign for a colder pattern. Now you keep going a little further, and the EPS ensembles is wanting to show an even better pattern showing up as you're getting into the last little few days of November. That's pretty far out. We're not going to focus too much on that right now, but the GFS, same thing, shows a trough moving through this weekend. Then it shows this right here. It's just not quite as aggressive, but I'll tell you, just like the GFS has been winning the battles in hurricane season, the European is still the king in winter season, in my opinion, and it still normally leads the way. A lot of times the GFS is actually the one that shows the crazy scenarios, and then the European kind of brings it back down to reality. In this case, the European's leading the way with this pattern change, but things could still trend the other way, but we're running out of time for it to really trend the other way. But here he goes, great pattern setting up, a little bit of blocking over Greenland. It really starts to turn up over Greenland, but the Pacific starts to interact. And with the GFS ensembles, you have the pattern is very fleeting. It moves through very quickly, and it's replaced by actually some ridging by the time you get to Thanksgiving. And then it actually is trying to tell us that it might be more closer to average temperature-wise than Thanksgiving. But we'll see how that bounces back and forth. You look at the EPS control run, which basically is, it normally shows the most aggressive scenario. Let's be realistic, but it's doing a great job picking up on what could possibly be a big-time low pressure here forming off the northeast as we get into early to mid part of next week. Now you look at the EPS ensembles, it's nothing's really aggressive. We go about 240 hours out, which takes us to about Thanksgiving morning. Some pretty intense snow in the lake effect snow belts here. And then there's still a little signal all the way down into outside the mountains of North Carolina, but it's very small and nothing significant, and a little bit of a signal in the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee. So nothing crazy showing up with the ensembles right now. So that you got to respect that. But as far as temperatures, I haven't mentioned that much in this video, but if you look at temperatures from the European, and here it comes. Here comes this trough coming through this weekend. And late weekend to this weekend. It makes it for a chilly weekend. And then we get into the latter part of the weekend, still chilly, but nothing crazy. But here comes the real deep, this is Arctic air moving in. And as we get into Tuesday morning, waking up to sub-freezing temperatures. But if you look up here, this looks kind of odd. This is a lot of the things we have to work out. You got a deepening system that's kind of almost filtering in milder air for the extreme northeast areas. But if you're looking at the European, very chilly air getting all the way to North Florida. So this is potential highs for the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. 40s all the way to the coastal areas, almost all the way to Florida. You're showing this area in 30s in Virginia. That's because it's trying to show where snow's falling. One thing I have not pulled up here is the 850s. It's showing a very cold air mass aloft in this area right here. And what would that mean is you have cold in all levels of the atmosphere just about. So that's why it's showing snow falling on the southern end of the precipitation of the storm system. But I tell you, this is some cold air, some pretty chilly air. It looks like it might moderate a little bit for Thanksgiving or day before Thanksgiving. But then you see right before Thanksgiving maybe a reinforcing cold air mass starting to move in. But that's 240 hours out, pretty far out. Now, the latest GFS is a little different. You move into this weekend, colder air mass, and then here comes the big cold right here. These are high temperatures. So high temperatures in Minneapolis in the 20s potentially for next Monday, a week out. High temperatures only in the 30s in the Ohio Valley, 30s for the Northeast, Mid-South in the 40s. And then a big time cold moves in. This is potentially Tuesday morning of next week. And look how far south this could be a hard freeze for areas who hadn't even gotten a freeze yet. Here in my location in Lexington, South Carolina, we've only hit 32.9 degrees at my house, so no official freeze yet. But this is Tuesday high temperatures potentially across the eastern U.S. Pretty chilly, pretty far south too. But it's quickly replaced with a warmer air mass as you get into Wednesday. Then as you get into Thanksgiving, it's wanting to show pretty comfortable conditions across the south, almost downright warm in certain areas. And then what happens after that's kind of weird. We just don't know until the weekend, until next weekend. But it's a lot to figure out, guys, a lot. You look at temperature anomalies on the European, and here it comes as you get into early next week. These greens or temperatures, 5 to 10 degrees below normal in these areas. So chilly air mass moving in. I really think next week, at least for the early part of next week. The latter part of next week is kind of a question mark as the European GFS differs. But there's a pretty stout signal for a storm system. Really is. And this is probably going to be the topic of the discussion over the next several days, guys, because Thanksgiving is a big time travel week, and I think it's important for people to know what's going to happen weather-wise as they're traveling all over the place. I know I'm going to Brevard Wednesday night for Thanksgiving, and I'll be there till probably about Saturday. So I'm also watching the weather. I would love for some kind of freak snowstorm to happen in the mountains while I'm there, but that's probably wishful thinking. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all have a great night, and I'll talk to y'all again tomorrow.